How we doing, everybody, and welcome to Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. I'm your host, Trage. It is Monday in the great state of Wisconsin, or wherever you are tuning in. Pretty good weekend. I gotta say, nothing much going on that was crazy eventful. We watched the Badgers. That wasn't, if you call it a game. They went down to Tucson, if that counts. They were down there. But other than that, that's about all that happened down there. We're going to get into that game a little bit. Talk about what we saw. It wasn't as, it was bad. There was some parts that I think the Badgers needed a reality check, and I think they got in this one. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to be looking at the Bucks. The Bucks play tonight here. Also, the Packers are back in action tonight. We got to check out that game, see what we're thinking, get some of the keys to that one. And then also, we're just going to bounce around a little bit and talk about some of the major sporting events that are going on. But with that, I am your host, Trage. I am here with Austin. Austin, we didn't know if Austin was going to make it. Didn't know if he was going to make it on tonight. Austin, how are we doing on this fine Monday?
We're doing good. Yeah, a little bit of a rough night, but we're back here. And, hey, all I'm saying is for school, it's finals week. So I'm pretty excited. Last week of school for the semester. So
his exact words were to me were, I had to celebrate this season. And I said, wasn't that all of last week? And he told me, yeah, it was. It just carried in, apparently.
We have this tradition that we do, and basically we celebrate the whole season in 1 week. So that's and then you tops it off on the weekend, obviously. And so one thing led to another, but hey, we're here. We're here. That's all that matters.
We are here, and we are ready to rock. We're ready to talk some sports. So right away, we're going to jump into the Bucks. The Bucks and the Bulls will face off tonight. That will be a 7 o'clock tip there. I believe that is from the Pfizer. Yep, it's from the Pfizer there. Right now, giving the Bucks a pretty good shot to win this one. Bucks coming in at 15-7. Whereas the Bulls coming in at 9-14 as of right now. Looking across the injury report just a little bit before we dive into the stats, it looks like Zach LaVine will be out for this game. Alex Caruso is game time decision along with Patrick Williams, and Bidham will also be a game time decision. Pat Connaughton is out, and Chris Livingston will be a game time decision. So with that, Austin, what are we seeing for stats for these two teams kind of squaring up here?
Yeah, for the Chicago Bulls right now, it's DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, but he's obviously not playing. But those two are kind of leading the charge for them this year. DeMar DeRozan has 21.8 points per game, and then Zach LaVine has 21. But so it's probably a good thing that he's not playing against us. Nikola Vucevic has 16, and then Kobe White has 15.6, and then to round it off, Alex Caruso has 9, but game time decision right there. So, besides that, I know the last time the Bucks played Chicago Bulls, pretty sure that they lost to them, and that was a team.
Yep.
And that was a team without. I don't think they had DeMar. They didn't have Zach LaVine. They didn't have a lot of their major players. And it was ugly. Now with DeMar DeRozan back, most likely, that's just another person that we're going to have to try and stop. And how it looks of our defense is not very good. Especially, the Pacers kind of just dominated. They kind of just they mopped the floor with the Bucks defense, honestly. So with some of these guys back now for the Bulls, and we just lost to them. I mean, we have like an 80-some% chance to win, but who knows these days anymore, because the Bucks are just on and off, it seems like, every single time. So should be a game that we win, but then again, who even knows at this point? Bulls are still a talented team. So yeah.
Yeah, and Bucks coming off that, it was a very depressing loss to the Pacers there. And, I saw the betting line for that one. The over-under was 257 points for the Bucks Pacers. There must have been a lot of ticked off people there after that ball game there with the Pacers. I think it was I can't remember what the final was there, 128 to 119. So it fell under that 250 mark. So the Bucks and Pacers kind of let some bettors down in that sense. But like you said, the defense has been shaky for the Bucks, and we proved it. We saw it in the Indiana game there late. Knicks a little bit better, but the Knicks aren't that high octane of an offense. They're more of a defensive team, and the Bucks kind of look good on offense in that one. The Pacers game, that Pacers team's good. I mean, they can shoot the lights out of a building. They have the bench play, and I think that's what the Bucks are lacking right now is that bench play to go along with it. And this Bulls team coming off, they're on a 4-game win streak right now. They just beat the Pelicans, who made it. If you take into perspective that in-season tournament, that Pelicans team was in the semifinals of that in-season tournament there against the Lakers, and this Bulls team just beat them 124 to 118 on the 2nd here of December. Coming off a win against San Antonio, that's not really that crazy impressive, but this is a Bulls team you can't really mess around with. The Bucks got to put them away early. We got to see, the pick and roll game right now is more between, it's not as much between Giannis and Dame as it is between like Brook. Brook Lopez is more involved in there. We're not seeing a lot of Dame Giannis yet. And we just want to see that kind of develop there. But I really do think the bench will have to be big here for the Bucks moving forward for them to show anything. The shooting guard position is still a big question for me with that Bucks team. Right now, Beasley, one night he gives you 30, the next night he gives you 5, and then you have nothing off the bench right now to kind of regain those points that you're lacking there with Beasley. And I think that's a big fault right now for the Bucks is not having. And I mean, you lost 3 great defenders in Grayson Allen, Drew Holiday, and Jay Crowder's out right now. And you gained Beasley, but Beasley's still not a good defender out there on the perimeter. Dame, we know he's not a good defender, so you don't really have good defenders out there on the perimeter, and I think that's a big problem for this Bucks team right now. Austin, you're muted on your end.
Oh. Yeah, like I was saying, I'm looking at the Bucks stats here, and obviously Giannis has 30, Dame has 25. Like they're gonna have their points, and then it kind of drops off. I mean, Brook has 13, Middleton 12, Malik Beasley 11, Bobby Portis off the bench 11, and then guess who? Jay Crowder, who only played 9 games, is above a lot of players who have gotten more game or more time or more minutes than him. So that just goes to show our struggle that is coming off of the bench there, considering Jay Crowder averages 8.1 points per game in only 9 games. And then after that, I mean, you got guys like Cameron Payne, Pat Connaughton, Margin Beauchamp, and AJ Green, Andre Jackson Jr., like all those guys who have played a little bit more, and they're still not producing off the bench, it doesn't help our team at all.
Yeah, 100%. You just said it plain out and simple. They have a problem, and it is the bench. That is their biggest problem. It's been it all season long. We've been talking about it, and we're not seeing anything out of it so far. So, I mean, that's going to be a big thing the Bucks will have to address here moving forward is their bench play. But with that, I just want to jump over. I want to jump over here into the Badgers. Badgers coming off that game against Arizona. Let's see here. Trying to pull it up here. It was, that game versus Arizona was, I tried all weekend thinking about ways to put it into perspective what that game was. And it was a test. Going down to Tucson, that was a very hostile environment. The place was packed. You were getting in there against the number 1 team in the country, and you fell flat. That's about all you can say for that game. And we're going to dive deep into this one. But first, I want to jump to Austin here with the stats for this game and then go over it a little bit.
Yeah, just looking at the points compared to Wisconsin, the Arizona team, you can see where we kind of slipped up there. I mean, especially our starting 5, Stephen Crowell, he had 11 points. Tyler Wall, 8 points. AJ Storr, 10 points, which at the beginning of the game, I'm like, oh, AJ Storr, he's going to be the one that carries us here a little bit. Only 10 points, though. Then Max Klesmit, who I said was going to need a big game, only had 5 points. And so I think that kind of showed there a little bit. And then Chucky had 7. A bright spot, though, for us is John Blackwell. I mean, he had 17 points for us there. And at this point, I think you can start making a consideration to start him over Max Klesmit because, I mean, 17 points off the bench, we need that in the starting lineup. We need him playing a lot more than – I mean, he did get a lot of playing time. He played 26 minutes for us there. So he would have been Steven Crowell, Max Klesmit played 27, Chucky played 29. But he had more minutes than Tyler Wall and AJ Storr there. But 17 points, that's good to see from the freshman. Then looking at Arizona, Johnson had 11, Ballo had 15, Boswell had 10, and then Larson had 21, Caleb Love had 20. Those two guys kind of not carried because obviously the other guys had very good games too, but it seemed like those guys were the ones who were making all the shots for them. Then just looking at the rebounds a little bit, the Badgers had 30 rebounds compared to the Arizona Wildcats. They had 39 rebounds. A lot more assists too. It seems like they're the ones who they pass the ball a lot. They get the ball to the open players, and they had 26 assists compared to the Badgers' 13 assists. So that doesn't look too good on our part there. But honestly, watching the game, I was like, all right, like first half, I'm like, early in the first half, I should say, I'm like, all right, we're keeping pace with them. And then they started getting away there. And they were down by almost 20 at halftime. And then we just weren't able to come back at the end there. And this is a very good Arizona Wildcat team. So nothing to hang their heads on, but just got to get up and fight the next game here. And they took 2 out of 3 2 out of 3 games that we were wanting them to. I mean, I wasn't expecting them to sweep anything, obviously, but if they would have won, that would have been awesome. But getting 2 wins out of these 3, out of Marquette, Michigan State, and then Arizona, I say that's a pretty good resume booster for them either way.
Yeah, like you're saying there, I mean, surviving the gauntlet, right? You had those 3 games there. We were saying 2 out of 3 was going to be golden. I don't care which 2 you won, that was going to be golden for you. And they survived the gauntlet of games here that they had. Now you just got to get through some of these iffy teams and then roll into the Big Ten schedule. And I think you're sitting pretty. I mean, this Arizona team, we're really going to see what Arizona has. They have Purdue coming up this next Saturday, right? I mean, so Arizona's going to get tested again against a very good against a very good Purdue team. The thing I take away from this game is I don't believe that Arizona is, a 98-73. I don't believe that they're that much better than Wisconsin. I don't. I really don't. Wisconsin failed themselves in this game. I mean, like you said, the game started to get away with them. The defense took a step backwards in this game. The defense that we saw against Marquette, against Michigan State, we didn't see against Arizona. The biggest thing Wisconsin teaches is that when there's a ball screen out top, they fight over the screen and they stay on the guy. They help side defense. They help with the guy. They don't fall off. And in this one, I mean, in the first half, they're 8 for 17 from downtown was Arizona. They were able to shoot the lights out in the first half, but they had a lot of open shots coming off the ball screen. And that killed Wisconsin. Wisconsin's own defense killed them in this one. Like you said, started out, they were right with them. Toe-to-toe with them. They were going back and forth. They tied it at, I believe it was 23 at one point there in that first half with 9 to go in the first half. It was like, okay, we can play with these guys. We can hang around. I mean, this is a very athletic Arizona team. And Wisconsin, I didn't think they were, Marquette's very athletic. And Wisconsin played right with Marquette, but that was limiting transition, rolling off those ball screens, help side, preventing the 3, forcing bad shots. And in this one, I mean, look at this run that Arizona went on, a 20-2 run. They started with there, ended the first half on a 25-8 run against the Badgers, 25-8. At halftime, the game was over. You were down by, I can't remember what the halftime score was, 48-31. That's kind of tough to come back from against an Arizona team that was playing very well. The bigs for Arizona controlled the paint. Wisconsin had done so well controlling the paint early on this season against Marquette, Michigan State. It didn't matter who it was. They couldn't stop this in the paint work. The guards were able to come off ball screens. If the Badgers hedged out, they were able to kick it down to the post right away. The Badgers were just overmatched. It seemed like they weren't ready for this ball game here. And like I said, it didn't help. This game was in Tucson, and the crowd was electric. The game was electric, and the Badgers just weren't ready for it. But this is not the Badgers aren't that. I mean, if the Badgers are that bad of a defensive team, 98 points. I haven't seen the Badgers give up 98 points in a while. The Wildcats actually averaged 1.38 points per possession, scoring the most points against Wisconsin since the 1994 NCAA tournament game against, I can't even remember who the Badgers played in that game. Austin, find out who the Badgers played in the 1994 NCAA tournament. I'm assuming they must have lost, but that team averaged the most points against them per possession in a game. So I don't know who that was. So let me know when you got that, though. But, I mean, this Arizona team shot well, performed well, did everything that Wisconsin had to prevent, and Wisconsin played themselves right into their hands. Wisconsin did not control the tempo in this one, and I thought that was a big thing in this one. The tempo was not in Wisconsin's favor. And, Austin, you got it?
Yeah. You said 1994, right? Or 98?
1994 NCAA
Yep.
tournament.
They lost to Missouri 96-109.
There we go. So I'm guessing that was our ball game. Missouri averaged the most points against UW before this last Saturday in that ball game. But that's the defense of Wisconsin struggling in this ball game. 1.38 points per possession. You cannot win a ball game when you're giving up that, especially when you play the way that Wisconsin does, where 73 points, usually in a Division I basketball game, 73 points can get you a win on any given night. And on the flip side, if you gave up 98. So the defense is what failed Wisconsin in this one. The offense, you look across the board, it wasn't stellar. They got out rebounded. Physicality was big in this one. They just weren't physical. I really thought that the Badgers were really lackadaisical. You look at the rebounding there. Arizona coming into this one was one of the top teams in the country rebounding the basketball, but the Badgers were right along with them. You look at some of the recent Badger games, 10 plus offensive rebounds per game. They were, going nuts on the offensive boards. And in this one, 6. Arizona did a great job limiting Wisconsin, getting offensive rebounds, getting second chance points. And in this one, it seemed like the second the Badgers missed, that ball was down to the other end of the court, and Wisconsin couldn't slow them down. It was like boom, boom. The second the Badgers missed, the ball was gone already, and it was at the other end of the court. So the Badgers were, the transition defense for the Badgers was bad in this one. Arizona's got a ton of athleticism, but you can still defend that. And, they've showed that against Marquette. Marquette's a very athletic team, and Wisconsin slowed down that transition defense. They limited those transition points. Marquette in this one, ton of transition points. And I think that was a big thing that killed Wisconsin. Also, Wisconsin's offense got baited in this one. They weren't going to allow the post touches. They knew what Wisconsin wanted to do, so they allowed the mid-range shot, and Wisconsin could not hit that mid-range shot, and that was the big killer in this one. They were actually 7 for 26 on 2-point shots outside of the paint in this one. 7 for 26, 26%. You can't hit the mid-range, you're going to get killed. That's just plain and simple. You're going to get killed. You look at the percentages for the Badgers, 41% on the game there from the field, 29 for 70. They got shots up, and a lot of them, like we're seeing, were in that just outside the paint area, and they just couldn't hit them. And that was the big kicker for Wisconsin in this one. 8 turnovers. Not bad in the turnover margin. You kept it under 10. You look at most teams would keep it under 10. That's a solid game out there turnover-wise. They just had a lot of key turnovers. Things that were early on in the game where Arizona put on that run on Wisconsin and the Badgers turned the ball right back over to them. That was the big kicker. Against teams like Arizona, you can't afford mistakes, right? We went into this one, we said Badgers were going to have to play a perfect game. It was going to be like Marquette. Marquette, the Badgers had to play a perfect game to win that one, and they didn't. They did against Marquette, and in this one, they couldn't pull that same magic off. And so like I'm saying is, I don't believe Arizona is that much better than Wisconsin. Right now they are. Right now they are that much better than Wisconsin. But I think this Wisconsin team, I think they needed a game like this. Coming off a game against Marquette, coming off of a game against Michigan State where you won both pretty handily. The Marquette game got a little shaky late, so did Michigan State. But, I mean, you had 10-point, 15-point leads in those games. This game against Arizona was kind of a wake-up call, I think, for the Badgers, especially heading into Big Ten play. I think that's a good thing for Wisconsin. You put up 73 against a pretty good defensive team from Arizona. You gave up 98, so you know where you're lacking. You're lacking on the defensive end. And that comes from all over with this Badger team. And like I was talking, they went away from the golden rule of their ball screens, and I thought that was the big thing that killed them. 3-point shooting, like you were talking there in your going over the stats there, 12 for 26. But you look at the guys who hit them. Caleb Love, 3 for 8. Larson went 4 for 4, 2 for 5 from Boswell. Good 3-point shooters. Wisconsin just couldn't control them. And, 3-pointers are daggers. They were daggers right in the Badgers' heart, and that's what we saw in this one. The entire starting 5 for Arizona was in double figures in this one. Right there. You aren't going to beat a team when they shoot 58% on the game. It's tough to beat a team like that. It really is. 58% from the field and about 50% from downtown. That's tough to beat. Especially when they also double down there and go 16 for 26 from the free throw line. And then you look at Wisconsin on the flip side of that, 8. 8 free throws in this ball game. You look at that game against Marquette, 24 free throws, or 28 free throws in total, 24 for 28 in that game against Marquette. Getting to the free throw line consistently, the Badgers did not get the attack that they got against Marquette, and I thought that was the big kicker in this one. But like you said, in this game, John Blackwell, we saw it in this one, in one of the biggest games the Badgers have played all year besides playing Marquette at home there. Going on the road to Arizona, hostile environment. John Blackwell comes into the game there, 4 for 5 from downtown. 4 for 5. John Blackwell has had moments and spurts, but this was kind of a breakout game for Blackwell, and I 110% agree with you. Blackwell brings defense to this Badger team. The thing that separated Connor Essegian and Max Klesmit in the starting role was defense for offense. Blackwell brings it both. And if you want, you're going to have to. He played 26 minutes in this ball game against Arizona. But if you want to have your best starting 5, what we're seeing production-wise on this court right now, Blackwell's in your starting 5. He is. And people will say, well, why not Chucky? Why doesn't Chucky come out? Chucky does those little things for you. He doesn't score a lot, but you look at it, 6 assists. He has 6 rebounds in this game for the Badgers also, and then 3 for 9 shooting. So he's not trying to shoot as much. This one, he tried to get things going late, or he tried to get things going for the Badgers because they were struggling so much. But, Klesmit, you have a good game, you have a bad game. It's like we were talking with the Bucks there with Beasley. Can you afford to keep watching this go back and forth, or do you want your best 5 out on the court there at all times? And I think Blackwell is a part of that best 5 for this Badger team right now.
Yeah, like I was saying, he's one of the bright spots, especially coming off the bench. But I don't know, things might start getting interesting, especially with these next few games coming up. They play Jacksonville State and University Chicago or Chicago State or something like that. Not 2 very good teams, so we might see a little bit of a switch up in the starting roles, or I don't know how it's going to go, but they need to find some sort of consistency at that shooting guard spot to fill in for a little bit of lost production there in the starting role.
And I'm pretty sure I saw the stat. The Badgers are actually they're actually 0-12 against top 25 teams on the road. I just want to see if that's true. Looking it up right now. See if it comes up. I'm not seeing. It's going to take a while to search that thing up. But from what I saw, they're 0-12 against top 25 teams on the road all time. So not a very good percentage there. And Arizona's record in 3 seasons under Tommy Lloyd against AP top 25 teams is 77. So they're pretty darn consistent. They're going to win that top 25 matchup. You take them at home then, too. If this game was at the Kohl Center, do we see a different game? I really do think so. I really do think if the game's at the Kohl Center, we see a different game. I think if the game's on a neutral site, I think we see a different game out of these two teams. It was in Tucson playing top team in the country. I think that killed the Badgers there. 19 fast break points in this one against the Badgers. Season high total given up by this Badger team. So transition defense, a problem for this Badger team like we were talking. And then 32 bench points by the Badgers in this one. That was actually their season. Most the Badgers have scored since the season opener. So the Badgers bench proved to be it in this last game against Arizona when the starters couldn't get it started. I mean, we look at Crowell. He really didn't get going until the second half. Wall wasn't much of a factor. AJ Storr, that Ballo, I'm pretty sure his name was Ballo. Yeah, Ballo did a very good job on AJ Storr, slowing him down. Klesmit couldn't get her going, and Chucky couldn't get it going, so the bench had to pick up the slack, and that came from a lot from Blackwell in this ball game here. Also, like you said, pretty good ball game from Carter Gilmore in this one off the bench. So Badgers bench kind of carried, but it's a regroup time now for the Badgers. You can't really, like you said, like we talked about, you went through the gauntlet. That was the gauntlet of the schedule right there, going through some top 25 teams right away. And now, Jacksonville State, Chicago State. Both teams can be a little bit scary because I believe that we talked about it earlier. Was it Jacksonville State that had the brothers that were really good, or was it Chicago State?
I'm not quite sure, but I do remember talking about that. I can't remember.
I really want to say that it's Chicago State. I want to say, looking at it quick, look at the roster. Yep, Chicago State's got the brothers, the Bewley brothers.
Yep.
Matt and Ryan, 2 5-star recruits Chicago State got in there. So, you're not going to have an easy test there against a team like Chicago State, but Badgers got a little easier schedule coming up, so that will be good news for them. But with that, I believe they don't play next until, the 14th. What is the 14th? Do we know our dates? 10th is
Thursday.
11th is today. Thursday?
Thursday. I think so.
Thursday. Okay, so Thursday the Badgers will be tipping off. So we'll get into that game against Jacksonville State coming up on Thursday there. But with that, I just want to jump into the biggest news that crashed the sporting world. Austin, I still got you?
Yep.
The biggest news that crashed the sporting world, and that is Shohei Ohtani is signing with the Dodgers, and that contract, ridiculous. Probably the most baffling deal I think I have seen in a very long time. $700 million is the contract over 10 years. Now, everybody's got to do this because they do it with every contract. And they came out with, I believe it was the breakdown. Per year, he's going to be making about $70 million. Per month, he's making about $5,833,333. Per week, $1,346,153. Per day, he's making $191,780. Per hour, he's making about $8,000. Per minute, he's making $133, and per second, he's making $2.22. Are you kidding me? $2.22 a second this guy's making. He's making more money than he's taking breaths. That's what I'm getting out of this right now. Another ridiculous thing I saw, the Dodgers are spending $700 million on Ohtani. The U.S. population is 327 million. They could have given each American $1 million and still had money left over for Ohtani. Isn't that just?
I wish I had some of that. That would have been nice. Student loans,
I looked at this deal, and it's, who's worth $700 million, first off? I mean, come on. Who's worth $700 million? This guy's coming off of injury.
I don't even know how much Messi's making, and he plays soccer.
Exactly. And, you look at, you look at Shohei Ohtani's stats. He's not the best pitcher in the league. He's not the best hitter in the league. Yet he's making more than the best pitcher in the league and the best hitter in the league. I mean, you look at this contract, you combine them together, that's what you're paying him as. He's the best of both. And he's not that. So $700 million, that's just ridiculous. You look at Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani have a combined estimated worth more than the Miami Marlins. They have a combined estimated worth of $1.07 billion. The Miami Marlins are worth $1 billion. I mean, just to see some of the numbers that this Dodger team has got out there right now, just ridiculous. And I looked at the 15 biggest contracts in sports right now. Shohei's making 70. Damian Lillard, 60. Giannis is making 59. Anthony Davis is making 59. Jaylen Brown's making 57. Devin Booker's making 55. Karl-Anthony Towns, 55. Jokic making 55. Joe Burrow's making 55. Steph's making 53. You don't even see Patrick Mahomes show up on this list. I mean, Joel Embiid, 53. Justin Herbert, 52. Lamar Jackson, 52. Jalen Hurts, 51. And Bradley Beal's making 50. $50 million a year. I mean, just ridiculous contracts that these guys are getting spewed out to them right now. And baseball has got a problem. The problem is that there's no salary cap. So the Dodgers, the Yankees, the San Francisco Giants, pretty soon here, we look at this deal. You now have, like I said, the net worth between Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani is sitting at sitting at $1.07 billion. And you look at then you look at the flip side of that, teams that are making way less. I mean, Shohei Ohtani is making more in his contract than the payrolls of I believe, the entire at American League Central. I believe he's making more than the entire American League Central is making for their payrolls. That's just ridiculous. And to me, it might not ruin baseball because you're going to be able to see teams like the Rangers and Diamondbacks make it. They're going to make it every once in a while. But you're not going to see star power spread out. It's teams with, look at the NFL. Patrick Mahomes took a big contract, so what did they have to do with Tyreek Hill? Trade him away. He's gone now. Patrick Mahomes doesn't have weapons anymore because they had to pay him. They had to pay Travis Kelce. They got to pay other guys, so they had to make sacrifices. That's how the NFL makes it work, and star power gets spread out. You can't just have a Shohei Ohtani deal where whoever comes in at $700 million can bank in on Shohei Ohtani. I just think it's ridiculous. I really do think it's ridiculous that there is no salary cap and teams are just able to do this because give it a couple years. I mean, the Brewers, we're Wisconsin guys, so look at the Brewers. The Brewers can't even look in the direction of the top half of the free agent pool right now. They have to look at the end of it. They have to look at guys like 35-year-old guys or 37-year-old guys. I mean, just guys that are past their primes. We have to pray for the best, but that's what we have to do because we can't afford the rest of it. We got to bank on rookies to come up and be the guy. Right now, we're banking on Jackson Churro to be able to develop into something early on in his career by signing that big contract with the Brewers. So, I mean, right now, it's a mess. I really do think it is a mess right now that Major League Baseball needs to fix by putting some kind of salary cap into the league to kind of level out the star power, the playing field, and everything else for the small market teams who are now sitting here like, we couldn't afford Shohei Ohtani if we wanted to as the Brewer organization. $700 million, we couldn't afford him if we wanted to. We couldn't afford him and put anybody onto the field. It would have just been Shohei Ohtani. So, I mean, that's just, ridiculous to me. I don't know how you feel about the whole situation, but I just think it's kind of, it took me, when I saw $700 million, it took my breath. I was like, what the heck am I looking at right now? There's no way this is real. And it is. It definitely was real.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't think not having a salary cap is crazy, honestly, because like you said, $700 million, 10 years. It's $700 million. That's a lot of money. You see those types of numbers. I mean, Ronaldo and Messi. Those are guys that are making that much money, and they play soccer. It's I think you see a lot of the top players that are the top salary players are soccer players. I want to say, not entirely sure on that, but for a baseball guy to be making $700 million, $70 million a year, it is crazy. And I think it's funny because you were saying Jackson Churrio's big contract. What's he getting, like 80 million or something like that? And it's just kind of funny how
80 mil.
Yeah, 80 mil, and that's a big contract for the Brewers right there. And the Dodgers, I've always wondered before, obviously, because I didn't know that the MLB didn't have a salary cap for a longest time. But before, I was like, how are the Dodgers always getting all these good players? Max Scherzer they had, and then who else? Mookie Betts, and I don't know,
Freddie Freeman.
Freddie Freeman, just so many good guys. And it's because they don't have a salary cap. They can just throw out as much money as they want because they're the highest, they're the most wealthiest franchise in MLB. So they're going to be able to get the money. And this goes back to Anastasio not willing to spend money for the Brewers either. I don't know how wealthy he is at all, honestly, but obviously the Dodgers owner is a lot more wealthier than what we got cooking down in Milwaukee. And he's willing to spend a lot of that money to win championships, or at least try and win championships. But then also you make a good point. The Diamondbacks and Rangers, they kind of just came out of nowhere. They don't have a lot of the best guys. They have a lot, especially the Diamondbacks. They're a lot younger. I'm pretty sure they have 2 rookies on their team that started for them there, and you saw how good. I mean, they beat the Dodgers. So, I mean, there definitely is chances where these teams will be able to sprout out without having as much money to pay players. But at the end of the day, I feel like a salary cap is going to have to come into play because you're going to see these teams you're going to be able to see these super teams coming up soon, and like the Dodgers here. Even Houston was kind of becoming a super team, but I feel like they were doing a little bit more, not in an illegal way, because obviously it wasn't illegal, but they did it more legit. I want to say, like, those guys were players that they drafted and then they came up through the ranks or whatever. But the Dodgers, they kind of just, we need someone, we'll give him $150 million for a year and he can come play with us. I don't know. I mean, obviously it's still within the rules. There's no salary cap, but I feel like at some point it's gonna come. I feel like the salary cap's gonna come at some point.
And like you were talking there with Messi's making $555 million. That was actually a record deal up until Ohtani's deal when that smashed Messi's deal there. If you put into perspective too, Shohei Ohtani in his 10-year deal is going to be making $700 million. That is more than, and people love to say that LeBron is the greatest player in NBA history. LeBron is set to earn $530 million career in the NBA. That's 20-some years that LeBron has been in the league. And Shohei Ohtani is going to make more in 10 years than what he made there. That is just ridiculous to look at there. I don't know. I mean, it broke the internet. It definitely broke the internet when this deal was made. And, I think about it as like, you played MLB The Show. And there's a way on MLB The Show to shut off the salary so that way you can get all the guys and you can force trades and you can make that happen on MLB The Show so you can load up your roster. And when I look at this Dodger team and I think about it, that's almost what we're watching right now. You just shut off the salary, you shut off everything else, and you're just able to go get anybody you want. It's like a video game. And I mean, Shohei Ohtani is basically a video game player. He's the guy, your creative player on MLB The Show. And the Dodgers can just, every year, go out and load up their team with those kind of guys. The biggest problem I have with the no salary cap in baseball is you look at rebuilds, and when the Brewers go into a rebuild, it's a 5-10 year process for the Brewers to go through a rebuild. When the Cubs or the Diamondbacks or some of these lesser market teams go through a rebuild, it's 5 years before they're back to being a good ball club again. And you look at teams like the Dodgers, the San Francisco Giants, the Yankees, the Cubs, I guess, aren't even, well, they're not a small market. They're technically a big market team. Those teams can just right away flip the script and, we had a bad year. We can sell everybody and we can sign everybody back and we can make this team good again within a year or two, whether they can put a good team together or not. That's my biggest problem is right now that these lesser teams, the rebuilds are what really kill me. You have to rebuild for years upon years. Whereas in other leagues, the star power is so spread out, it's a little bit easier for you to get some good talent on the field versus these other, MLB, for a prime example, you can't do that. Looking at the NFL, look how spread apart that gets at times with talent-wise. Look at the quarterback position. How many teams have good quarterbacks? How many teams have one star wide receiver? You don't see teams with multiple stars on it because at the end of the day, you got to be able to pay the guys. So the stars disperse. They end up on other teams because of the salary cap. Baseball doesn't have that. You're able to sign guys for 10 years and you're able to pay them $700 million and it's just going to be A-okay. And that is my biggest problem right now with the MLB, and they got to do something fast to fix this mess. So with that, though, we want to get out of the MLB. We don't got the Tunes. They are messing with something. There's something going on in the software right now. But we're going to jump over to Austin with our fact of the day.
Yeah, I got an interesting one here. So on this day in 1866, we're going way back. It was the first yacht race. Those big boats worth a lot of millions of dollars. A yacht race across the Atlantic Ocean. Schooners Fleetwing, Vesta, and the Henrietta were sailing across the Atlantic Ocean. They left Sandy Hook for Scilly Isles, and the Henrietta won right there. But I just thought it was interesting because no one's racing yachts anymore. It's a lot more lounging on the yachts.
Interesting fact of the day there. I did not expect a yacht race in 1866 to be coming out of you today. That was impressive. I
didn't even know they had yachts back in 1866, honestly.
No, I imagine it as just a more high-class canoe. Like a little...
It's a bunch of Titanics.
As maybe a bunch of Titanics racing out there. It was a slow race. There was paddles involved, but they made it. And it was apparently a heck of a race because it showed up as our fact of the day. So, awesome fact out of the day there out of Austin. But we got to jump to the main reason why you're here, the main reason why we're here, and that is to talk about the big game coming up tonight. And, you don't think of it as a big game the way that the season started, but this has turned into a big game now for this Packers team. Coming off of 3 straight wins, matching up with this Giants team. I remember a couple weeks ago, they were actually talking, because the NFL has the ability to flex games now, they were talking about flexing this Monday night game with the Giants because they didn't think it was going to be a really matter for anything. So they were going to flex the game out of there. Now the Packers are rolling, so they're like, we'll leave it in there now. I thought that was pretty interesting to see. I remember seeing something about flexing this game, and now no longer. They're leaving it as the Monday night matchup. So that was good news. Primetime game for the Packers. Coming into this one, 6-6 are the Packers. They're in the playoff picture. They're sitting there with that 7th seed right now. They got to keep pace with the Vikings as of right now, sitting at 6-6. Vikings at 7-6 as of late. They won yesterday there against the Raiders on a field goal, 3-0.
The worst game
that was a terrible
played.
Game.
Oh, my
Terrible
Lord.
game, but we'll cover that tomorrow. We'll talk about how terrible it was. I know you picked the Raiders. We'll talk about it tomorrow. You can talk about it. So, but Giants coming in this one, 4-8 on the season there. Packers have the edge going into this one. Should have the edge there going to MetLife Stadium. But with that, I want to jump over to Austin. We're going to get into the stats here a little bit and talk about this game.
Yeah. To start off with the Giants, I mean, looking at their quarterbacks, kind of a cluster. Daniel Jones, he got hurt. Tyrod Taylor got a couple games in there. But the guy who's leading them at the helm, Tommy DeVito, huh? Little Italian guy right there.
DeVito, a little bit.
Tommy DeVito. Yep, that's the spaghetti.
The spaghetti.
He's got a 62.9 completion percentage there with 697 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. A lot better than what Daniel Jones was doing through 6 games. Tommy DeVito's only played 5. Daniel Jones played 6 games, 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and 30 sacks. Tommy DeVito, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, only 28 sacks. When I'm looking at the sacks, the Giants have given up a total of 69 sacks. That's a lot of sacks. Especially going against a very good Green Bay team that's been getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback lately with Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Lucas Van Ness there. It's going to be crucial for us to be able to get to the quarterback and make this Tommy DeVito guy a little uneasy back there. But for the rushing attack, they got Saquon Barkley. He only played 9 games so far. He was a little bit injured, but he's back. 165 carries, 697 yards, and only 1 touchdown so far. So, I mean, he hasn't been able to do a lot either, but it's still Saquon Barkley. He's still a very good running back. And then looking at the receiving core, they got Darius Slayton with 32 receptions and 435 yards, 1 touchdown. Darren Waller, their tight end, pretty sure he's out. Not sure if he's out for the season, but I'm pretty sure he's out for this game. Then they got rookie Jalen Hyatt. He has 17 receptions for 330 yards and no touchdowns. So besides Darius Slay and Jalen Hyatt, they got some filling guys there, but not a whole lot with this New York Giants offense there. I think what's going to be key though is that offensive line for the New York Giants. I mean, 69 sacks given up, and I mean, Saquon only played 9 games, but only 697 rushing yards, only 1 touchdown. They average about 107 yards per game rushing, and 182 yards passing per game. So not very impressive there, but I mean, I've said a lot of things reading off stats for these past few weeks, and I'm like, well, this isn't very impressive, especially when the Badgers were playing like Indiana. And I was like, well, Indiana's not very good. Well, Indiana kicked the crap out of the Badgers. So I can read all the stats I want, but I mean, it's going to come down to how the Packers execute on defense and how Jordan Love executes on offense, and if he just keeps the offense going for them.
Yeah, and like you were talking there with the offensive line, this game is going to be won in the trenches for this Packers team. Both sides of the ball, I believe. They got to be able to give Jordan Love, like they've been doing all season long, keep giving him clean pockets, and also getting that run game going for this Packers team. Got to prevent them from rattling Jordan Love in this one. And then on the flip side, Tommy DeVito, I mean, young quarterback coming out of Syracuse, terrible offensive line like you're talking, giving up a bunch of sacks on the season here. This Packers defensive line has got to get in there. And looking at the injury report, it is good sign. Devontae Wyatt looks like he's looking like he's going to be playing in this ball game here, along with Rashawn Gary and Devondre Campbell. So you're going to have all them guys back for this one. So that's going to help a lot with that pass rush there for the Packers. Just keep with that injury report. Jaden Reed, full practice there. Jonathan Owens, he was full practice. Keyshawn Nixon. Aaron Jones, limited practice all week, looking at questionable right now for this game. Christian Watson was ruled out for the ball game. So was Jair Alexander. I don't know what is going on with Alexander right now. It is a mess. He's limited practice all week, and then he's out on Sunday. So I don't know if it's the medical staff that's telling him no or what the deal is with Jair Alexander, but that's becoming a whole different story. Darnell Savage, he's questionable. Quay Walker is doubtful for this one, though, with the shoulder injury. He hasn't practiced all week, so he is doubtful for this one. I don't expect Quay Walker to be out there. Eric Stokes, full practice, though. I don't know why he's listed as questionable yet. He was full practice all week long, so I don't know why he's still listed as questionable for this ball game. But I expect to see Eric Stokes back out there, so the secondary is getting healthy for this Packers team. And like you said, though, flipping script here, going back to this offense for Jordan Love, the offense has got to keep clicking. We've seen them clicking here over the past couple weeks. The ball's been moving. They got to keep it going, keep it clean. I think that's been the biggest thing, the biggest growth of Jordan Love is him keeping his throws clean here over the past couple games, playing that in that Chargers game and then backing it up against the Lions and the Chiefs. No interceptions. He's got to keep it that way. This game against the Giants is definitely a winnable game for Green Bay, but you got to avoid making the silly mistakes in this one. I think that's going to be a huge key, is limiting the mistakes. You can't go backwards. This Packers team has progressed so much into, I didn't believe they could be a playoff team. I really didn't. And now they've played themselves into the playoff picture. They played themselves to the point where they could potentially win a playoff game or make noise when they get into the playoffs. So, I mean, hats off to what they've been doing, but you can't go backwards now. That's a big thing. Big hitters and trickery. I think that's going to be a big thing in this one. Can Jordan Love in the offense get some big hitters? To Jaden Reed down the line or to Romeo Doubs going deep? And also with trickery, are we going to see more of these wide receiver sweeps, the screen plays, anything like that? The short yardage stuff that we've been seeing that's been impressive out of this Packers team for a little bit here.
Yeah, and I was just looking at the Packers stats a little bit, and I see we all love to hate on the Green Bay O-line, you know. But I mean, when you look at how many sacks the Green Bay O-line has given up, only 24. When you look at Giants, 69. So let's just all be thankful that we don't have the Giants O-line blocking for Jordan Love, because his stats could be 100 times worse than what they're at. And I think especially, I'm pretty sure I've said this before, but especially with the Green Bay O-line switching their, switching out in and out, they're subbing a lot more. I feel like they're doing a pretty good job at still communicating stuff and still being effective, especially these past few games here on this win streak. So I just want to point that out a little bit.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think the biggest part of the offensive line's success was getting it healthy, getting those guys back. I mean, you still don't have David Bakhtiari. You never know if he's ever going to come back to football. I mean, but besides that, the offensive line's got healthy, and they've been out there consistently together. And I think Matt LaFleur's finally done doing his, we're going to test out different offensive line schemes or who's in and who's out during the game. I think that was a terrible idea. You can't get any coherency in a game if you're constantly flipping out who's in there. How are you supposed to be able to trust the guy next to you if you don't know who's in there or who's coming out? I think that was kind of not so good on Matt LaFleur's part. And, I mean, from your perspective, you play the offensive line. Do you see what I'm saying with that? Kind of flipping in and out during a game, he's mixing and matching. I just don't think that builds good chemistry, especially in a game. And especially with your quarterback who's like, okay, one time I have Josh Nimmin in there, and then the next drive he's not in there. So it's like, you know, that coherency of having the same offensive line out there. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, every offensive lineman, they play different. So a new guy going in there every other series, it is different, especially with communication and how they play. Like some guys will block just a little bit different. And sometimes people communicate differently, obviously, that way too. So I can see how it can become very, not distracting, but it can be hard to keep that communication down and be productive, because you are just bringing, and people probably don't want to hear it, but the O-line is the most important part of the football team. I mean, quarterback is probably most skilled, and you need to have a good quarterback. But you look at the Giants, they don't have a good O-line, and they're not successful. You look at a lot of other teams, and they have like the Philadelphia Eagles. Look at their O-line; they got so many All-Pros and whatnot, and they're successful. So, and also with them, the Philadelphia Eagles is they have a lot of consistency with who they're playing. They don't have guys coming in switching out. They have Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey. Um, I can't remember the Australian guy's name, but he's really good too. Mailata, I think his name is.
Yeah.
And they just have a lot of really good players on their line, and they're consistent. They're always playing. You can see how good they are. So going against the Giants, hopefully we have a little bit more consistency with who's out there playing, and who knows what Matt LaFleur is thinking, honestly, because he's made some questionable calls and decisions throughout this year. But it will be good to see um, uh, the same lineup out there every time, because then we know everyone's healthy. There's nothing going on, and we've also found our best 5 O linemen that we can trust out there.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that straight through and through. And the last thing that I had for key to this one, controlling Saquon Barkley. If you want to beat the Giants outright, Tommy DeVito, if Tommy DeVito beats you, he beats you. I mean, I can't foresee it, but, I mean, the guy might be able to do it. He's got, I would imagine, some mafia ties. He just sounds like he's got some mafia ties or something. But controlling Saquon Barkley. And the big thing for the Packers is going to be when you hit them, wrap them up, take them down. That's going to be the biggest thing. Don't let them get those extra yards after the first initial contact is made. I think that's going to be big for the Packers. You meet them in the hole, wrap them up, slow them down, wait for your guys to get in there and help out with that tackle. That's going to be big for the Packers in this one, controlling Saquon Barkley and just kind of making him a non-factor. Making him a non-factor in this one, I think the Packers will be A-OK against this Giants team. Putting pressure on Tommy DeVito, like I was talking earlier, defensive line's got to get in there. They got to put pressure on him make mistakes. He will make mistakes, and then the secondary can take advantage of it. I mean, look at this last game against the Chiefs. It came down to who was going to make the first mistake. It was Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So that's what really helped the Packers out there. I believe in this game, even though the Giants aren't the Chiefs, they're a lesser team than the Chiefs. It's still the same thing. You look at the turnover battle in the game, and if you win the turnover battle, generally you win the game. And I think that's what the Packers really need to do in this one, is limit turnovers themselves, limit mistakes themselves, and force the issue on the opposing side. But with that, you got anything else for the Packers?
No, I was just going to say Saquon Barkley. Yeah, we saw how Isaiah Pacheco ran against the Packers last week and how hard of a runner he is, and how it hurt our defense at some point or at some times. Saquon Barkley is just as hard of a runner as Isaiah Pacheco, and a little bit bigger too. So getting him down is going to be crucial, like you said.
100%. It's going to be a big game for the Packers. They got to continue moving forward. You know, big things coming up. Game Day Supply in Onalaska. They have everything you need sporting-wise this holiday season and this winter season. They got hockey, all kinds of hockey gear. They do skate sharpening down there. They got custom jerseys. They have it all at Game Day Supply. So check them out in Onalaska, or check them out online at GameDaySupply.net. But with that, we ran today. We covered a little bit of everything. We covered the Badgers. We got into the Bucks. We got the Packers coming up tonight. We got into the Shohei Ohtani deal, and we didn't even touch everything we wanted to talk about. So we got a lot to talk about tomorrow. But until we talk again, this has been Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow. But until then, deuces.